I had connections with offshore banks. The stock opens up at $15. The next day it goes to 100. So now they got $60 million. But you're going to leave at least $10 million behind for Bob. And we were processing credit cards for mostly gambling sites. We were making money hand over fist. But here's the scam. So I grew up in Emerald Hills, which is in Hollywood, Florida. One of my neighbors was a man by the name of Randy Lanier. Randy was the biggest pot smuggler in history to that point. He has a Netflix series about him. Anyway, I got a chance to offload a boat when I was 14. I
was just going to say, how old were you?
14 years old.
How does that happen?
So my friend says, hey, Randy's wants to get 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 guys to go to his house and hang out.
Right.
And he's going to give us $200. Okay. So we go to the house. It's on the Intercoastal.
Isn't that how Epstein started?
Yeah, but there was no women involved, unfortunately. And basically, he lived on the Intercoastal.
Right.
And as soon as the sun went down, we had 10, 14-year-old kids hanging out by the pool. Sun goes down, boat pulls up, we daisy chain 6,000 pounds of Colombian into the house. And first time I'd seen pot. And I knew what it was, but I'd never seen it. And so I come from an entrepreneurial background. My parents, my brother are all entrepreneurs. And I'm asking questions. What does it cost? How much does it weigh? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm
stuff the other kids aren't asking.
Right. And so when it was over, I got to the back. I was going to be the last person in line. So everybody leaves, gets paid off. I'm like, I don't want any money. I want one of those.
Right.
And he said, well, you're on a bike. And I'm like, well, I'll call my friend's sister who'll come over with a car. And so he laughed and he's like, well, the $200 is going to get you one of those. But he gave me enough to when I got home. And in those days, there was no scale. Someone had a scale.
Right.
And we did 4-finger lids. So you got a baggie and we just put enough cannabis in it to be 4 fingers. And that was a lid. $30, $25. And I started selling it. And the first time me and my friend had never smoked pot before. And in those days, it was pressed, it had seeds, and there was a method where you took an album cover and you opened it up and you broke the pot up on the album cover and then you used the rolling papers to separate the seeds and the stems from the flower. Well, no one told us, we didn't know anything. So we knew we had to separate the seeds and the stems, but we thought the seeds and the stems are what you smoked. So we took the seeds and the stems, put it into a big pipe, threw away the flower, started smoking the seeds and the stems, and the seeds are popping, going up, and it tasted like crap, and I got this headache, and I'm like, what are people seeing this?
Right.
They're buying it, I don't care. I'm making money. And then my brother came in and said, what was it like the first time? I said, it sucked, man. The seeds are exploding. It was the seeds. And so he's laughing hysterically, and it's like, no. The stuff you threw away is what you smoke.
Right.
So the next day, my friend comes over with a joint, and he had an album under his arm. This is 1974, and it's Bob Marley's first album. And I had tried cigarettes, hated it. I'm from an Irish family. Everyone in my family is an alcoholic. Highly functional. 2 of them have had to retire from drinking. But everybody drinks. I just never liked the taste. It wasn't for me. When I smoked this joint, I knew I found my life's purpose. It sounds funny, but it made me relaxed. So how could this be evil? Who would, why isn't, if it's legal and there was a risk premium, this risk premium meant that there was money in it.
Right.
And
you're 14.
I'm 14. And so all through high school, I'm dealing weed, making money. When I went off to college, I convinced a friend of mine to front me 100 pounds.
Well, wait, 14 to college?
That's 4 years.
What did you do? You just sold that whole time?
I was selling ounces in high school.
Okay.
And quarter pounds.
Are your parents figure this?
Oh,
no, okay.
no. I would have gotten killed.
Okay.
And so, but I'm making, and I didn't have to, it was a nice thing because my parents, we grew up in a nice neighborhood, but they made us work. So I pretended like I had a job.
Right.
But I would bicycle off to my other friend's house. His parents didn't care, and we would deal out of his house. And so I made a nice little living for myself all the way through high school, got to college, started dealing out of college, out of my dorm room, met some growers. I did my first grow in 77, and then 78 and 79. And then one of the guys in the grow moved out to California to work for another big pot smuggler named Joel. And when I graduated from college, I went to San Francisco and started, doing, I was a very small cog in a 40,000 pound Thai smuggle. Go to Thailand, barge, 40,000 pounds. In those days, this is 1981, the smuggler, Joel, owned a big ranch in Marin, now worth millions, but in those days, you couldn't give them away. And they would fly helicopters out to the barge 10 miles offshore, big cables on the crates, helicopter lower the boat's going, the wind's going, they're trying to grab the thing, and they would get all 40,000 pounds and land it in Marin on a hilltop, and then we'd have these huge box trucks that he bought from Ryder. And those Ryder trucks of that era were all wood paneled on the inside. And he hired a guy to put fake walls in the back, and we could get about 2,200 pounds of pressed Thai into these box trucks. And then they all went in a different direction to a different storage place in San Francisco.
Okay.
And it was an introduction to professional, big-time pot smuggling.
Did you know people that had been busted?
At this point, not so much.
So doesn't seem like a lot of danger in it.
Well, yeah, and I was, one of the things I did in the 80s is I started to, I purposely kept myself at a certain level.
Right.
Because I was making way more money than I needed, no family, I didn't have any bills to pay.
Right.
And I was living the life of Riley. I didn't have a job until 1994. So from college in 1976 to 94, I never worked.
Right.
But I had money. And so I purposely, I passed the opportunities to do things. And a couple of those people got busted, and I wasn't going to take. I knew how much risk I would take and how much risk I wouldn't, and I didn't mind driving at a Volvo, at a '76 Volvo, 2-door, that I could put about 200 pounds of Colombian in, and I put 500,000 miles on it, and I would drive it all over the country, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but $7,000-8,000 a month in those days is a lot of money.
That's a ton of money.
A lot of money.
It's practically like 40, 50. That's like 40 grand or something now.
It's just, and so, my rent was $300. I owned the car. I didn't have a bank account or a credit card. And in those days, you could get on an airplane, okay, no ID, and we all flew under fake names.
The DB Cooper just wrote.
Just put here. And so, and another cool thing is to transfer money. You could go to an airport in 1980 with 20 grand cash, go up to the Delta desk, buy the most expensive first class ticket, 17, 18, 19, 20,000 bucks, pay for it in cash. Those tickets were cash. If you lost it, you lost the money.
Right.
So we'd get the ticket in someone else's name. We'd overnight it to that person back in California. He would get the ticket in the mail. He would go to the San Francisco airport, and they'd give him 20 grand cash.
Jesus.
Yeah.
When did that stop? That seems like
in probably the 90s.
Yeah.
But the whole 80s, I flew under Mark Phillips. And
Mark. Okay. Well, I was going to say, at what point, I was wondering, at what point, like if you go to the bank now and you get like 10 grand, then you got to fill out a form.
Well, this is all before that.
Yeah.
This is way before that.
I'm wondering when that happened.
I think in the 90s.
Sometime in the 90s. They said this is enough.
And the other thing I would do is I would take red eyes from San Francisco to either Orlando or Tampa Airport direct. So I'd get on an airplane in San Francisco with 2 big suitcases filled with 20 pounds of Thai in them, get on a one-way direct flight to one of those 2 airports, figuring that I'm landing at 4 or 5 in the morning, the cops aren't going to be there looking for stuff yet.
Right.
And I never had a problem.
No drug dogs, nothing like that?
Well, they're usually, people work 9 to 5.
Right.
In those days. It was and We never got caught. I never got caught driving. I mean, I drove or flew thousands and thousands and thousands of miles. I had my little scene. I was doing 20, 40 pounds of this, that, and the other, and making a good living doing it. And basically avoiding growing up, avoid getting a job, avoiding responsibilities. And I was having the time of my life. And I was also a deadhead, so I followed the dead around a lot.
Were you married?
No. I didn't get married till I was 60.
No. Oh my God! Did you have a girlfriend?
Yeah, lots of them.
Many of them. Okay.
Yeah, and I just knew. Bob Dylan said in a song, "If you live outside the law, you must be honest, because everything's on a handshake."
Right.
The trust. Oh, I'm fronting you this money, and there's no contracts, there's no recourse. So
I was gonna say it's like prison when these guys are stabbing each other or getting into fights. They're like, "Oh, it's so horrible." I'm like, yeah, but you have to understand, you bring that on yourself. You run up a debt, you talk bad about somebody, you gossip, you know what I'm saying? Like you brought that on yourself. I'm like, these guys that's their only recourse. I'm like, they're not going to sue you,
right? That's the legal system in prison,
right?
Is violence. So I've always been a man of my word. And when you get married, you get up in front of your family and friends, and you swear to forsake all others, sickness and in health. And I knew that if I got married in those days, it would be really hard.
Right.
And plus, I never met anybody that I'm all about trust.
Right.
Lie, cheat, steal. It's a low bar, but you'd be surprised. And I had some awesome girlfriends, but they all lied, cheated, or stolen from me in some form.
Yeah.
And so I was having the time of my life, no interest in getting married or having kids. And I met somebody when I was 55. We got married when I was 60. I'm 66 now. And she had 3 kids, and I've helped raise them. And we got a great marriage and love her. And, and now I'm too old to cheat.
Right, I know. That's what I keep telling my wife. I'm like, I'm 55. I'm like, I'm an old man.
Work I'm at work every day.
Do you know how much effort that is?
Yes.
Like, I don't
have to find somebody. And plus I really love my wife.
Right.
I mean, it's
That's
just
a plus.
It is a plus, and so I knew that I knew myself, and I don't like to set myself up for failure.
Right.
And I knew that was going to be, and there was nothing, if I was going to get married and have kids, and, but I didn't have a job. I didn't have any savings. I made it and spent it. And so,
Well, how long did you kind of stay at the, 30, 40 pound, just kind of?
Pretty much. I had a nice couple of niches where guys I went to college with, rich kids, Charlottesville, Virginia, Westchester County, New York, North Carolina, in the beach towns in North Carolina. And so I could go up there with 50 pounds, 40 pounds, 30 pounds, and sell them in smaller amounts and hang out, because these guys all had money, and I'd make a 3-month, I'd make 30, 40 grand.
Right.
And so, over a couple of months, and it just was enough for me. I never wanted to be the Ferrari guy, and I watched all those Ferrari guys go to prison or die or, whatever. And so I purposely kept myself at, down here. And I was never Mr. Big.
Right. Were people getting busted around you?
Well, Kenny got busted a bunch.
Right.
Twice.
A bunch.
Yeah, twice. And, Kenny was always, and Kenny was doing more stuff. And he did some stuff too, but I also wouldn't touch.
Right.
And I would snort it. I never really I liked the way it smelled.
Yeah.
So, but selling it, not so much. It's just the people you dealt with. I didn't like guns. I didn't like violence. There's 2 cultures. There were people that were in the culture, and there were people in the culture. And these were all hippies and deadheads and, peace, love, happiness. And the crowd was Ferraris, guns, and hookers.
Right.
And this just wasn't me.
Yeah, I had a friend that used to make LSD. And where did he make it? It was in a St. Bart's. And then he would come in and he had a bunch of girls. They would go to the Dead concerts. They did a little blotter paper thing, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little thing, and they cut it up, and he'd go and meet the girls, and then they would walk around and sell them for whatever it is, 10 or 15 bucks a piece. I forget.
And make it's a good living.
He looks like Jesus Christ, by the way. He looked exactly. I mean, it's amazing. You feel like if he sat there and did the whole, and he's like that. I think that's where they exclusively sold to just the.
That was concerts. A nice market for them.
Yeah, he did that for a long time until he got busted.
Of course,
he got busted, and he had picked St. Bart's specifically to sell it because it was owned by, I want to say, whoever it was. It's a Dutch whatever,
Dutch or English or not. Yeah.
So they didn't. So the drug laws were super lax. The problem is because he was mailing stuff into the United States. He thought he was smart. He didn't know how the federal system worked in the United States, where he thought, one, I'm not in the United States, and I'm not making it in the United States, so I'm good. No, it's not how it works. No. So they got a shipment from somebody who he'd sent it to, and that guy set him up, and then they came one day and they busted him in St. Bart's or St. Martin. St. Bart. Anyway, and they eventually got him back. I think he fought extradition for like 4 or 5 years, and they eventually brought him back in and gave him 10 years. Because it was a super serious crime.
Yeah, no, it's a Schedule I narcotic.
Yeah, They were trying to give him like 30 years or something. They kept as time went on, eventually they got him down to like 10 years, and he was like, I'd already done like 5. So
LSD was an interesting dilemma because the way the law was written, it was written on weight. So you could take 1,000 hits and have it in a liquid form, and it would weigh nothing. Mm-hmm. You take that vial full of liquid LSD, and you would soak the paper. It's the same 10,000 hits, but now it weighed a life sentence.
Right.
So you went from 6 months for the same 10,000 hits. When you put it into paper, because it weighed, that's how the guidelines were. What was the weight? Mm-hmm. And I had a good friend that went to prison, got sentenced to 8 years federal, and it went before Congress, and it was like, this is unfair. And he actually was one of the few people that he got a reduction from 8 years to like 4 years. So, but yeah, LSD, it's like when the powdered versus the.
How do you determine that? Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So all these poor black people from the ghetto got these huge sentences, and all the white kids got, probation.
I was going to say, it's funny, he showed me the article in St. Bart's. It was like they had said they seized $11 million worth of. Oh, God. And he was like, I don't know where they got that. He's like, there was no way. Because don't I wish it was 11 million.
Oh, yeah. They take,
he was making tons of money, but not.
Yeah, not like that. No, that's one of the tricks is when you got busted with 100 pounds, they take, if you sell it on the street in a gram, it's $30. So they multiply whatever 100 pounds is in grams times 30, and it's a $6 million bust for $30,000 worth of.
Well, I mean, what happens? Do you ever get busted? I mean, do you ever
Kenny? You're gonna love this. So Kenny gets busted, and he says, "Hey, they were after you too. Right. And if I had been there, I would have gotten been right in with them." But they didn't.
How does he get busted?
His best friend.
Okay.
Narked on him.
And so the audience knows. Yeah. Kenny has been on the show previously.
Yes. Yeah. So Kenny gets busted. Then another friend got busted with a bunch of my stuff.
Do you know how can you tell how he got busted real quick? Well,
Terry, his best friend from high school, moved back to Ohio. Okay. Was a big builder, and he got popped, and he had kids.
Right.
And he owned a piece of property with his parents, and they were threatening to put his parents in prison, put him in prison. They get you by the balls.
Right.
And so he flips. And then he also set up, there were 3 of us that went to high school together. And Kelly Vickers. So he calls Kelly out, sets him up.
Right.
Calls Kenny and me, but only Kenny showed up. And it was like, the way that works is when you get busted, they want you to, the more people you roll on, the better deal you get.
Right.
And so he was just looking for numbers. And the state of Ohio had no interest, because they had no proof. For me, they were not coming after me because they, if I had gone to Ohio, I would have gotten busted, but I didn't go. So, Kenny had gotten popped for the second time. My other buddy got popped with a bunch of my stuff. And again, my name came up. And he was nice enough not to turn me in, but he said, hey, so. And then I had worked with these guys in the 80s who, in 1972, which is way before I was in ninth grade, they were living in Gainesville, Florida, at a time that you could grow 10,000 plants 5 miles outside of town, and nobody knew.
Right.
And they did it 2 years in a row and made millions, a couple million anyway.
Right.
They bought a horse farm in Ocala. They were boarding, I don't want to say the name of the horse, but a type of horse that is expensive.
Right.
A prosecutor from Gainesville boarded her horse at their horse farm, a male.
That's nice.
Okay. She popped in one day and found them taking the male horse and jacking it off to get the sperm that they normally, a stud fee is expensive.
Right.
So they were stealing
sperm.
$20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 or more worth of her horse's sperm. And she got all upset and pulled her horse. And so a friend of mine who was a lawyer, this woman, knew.
I'm sorry. It's just like walking in on. He's all like,
yeah.
And she, oh my God, so embarrassing.
That's what they do. They literally get the horse, the smell of another female, and they have it in these restraints, and then somebody literally starts jacking the horse off.
I just feel like that'd just be traumatizing as a job. Like if this is your job, I just feel like there's got to be some trauma that goes along.
Well, if you're a woman, it's gonna basically, how do you live up to a horse law?
Right.
I mean, she's used to this thing with 2 hands. I mean,
if you're a guy, there's got to be something going on.
Yeah, then there's a whole different deal. So, an attorney that I knew this couple, I'll call them Jack and Jill.
Okay.
And knew that this couple, that I knew them, and they were horse people. And so they get busted by the feds in a big way. And I had walked away from them because I just saw trouble. And so I didn't work with them for 2 years. And I'm at Kenny's house in Miami.
Okay.
And I get a phone call from this lawyer. And she says, Doug and Sue got busted by the feds last night, and it's hush-hush. No one knows. They busted them, and they let them out to round up everybody in the group and put them all away.
But they wanted you, and the lawyer called to let you know?
Yes.
Their lawyer?
No.
Oh, okay.
She just knew. So she's at the courthouse, and one day this prosecutor walks by and goes, Doug and Sue got busted last night. The prosecutor had no idea that this lawyer knew me.
Right.
None. And he's just saying, because the prosecutor knew that this other lawyer knew Doug and Sue. Just saying, hey, don't, and obviously it's hush-hush. She calls me. I get back home, and this is in the 80s, so I have a phone machine. And I turn on the phone machine, all the messages, click. Bob, man, Raleigh's back in town. You got to come down to the farm and get a bunch of and blah, 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 blah. And all these, and I ignored it. I never. But the interesting thing is, I was going to buy a car, and my brother was in the car business, and he runs my credit, and he goes, the federal government just ran a credit check on you. And it was right after. So they were going after assets.
I've seen that inquiry, by the
way. They're going after, because they just want, and I had no bank account, no credit card. I didn't own anything in my name. And so they never came, so they knew who I was. I was a name on some asshole's desk.
Right.
And, this is just like one after the other after. So it's 1992. And I was a business major in college. And all my buddies went to Wall Street. And in the 12 years that we graduated, they were all big shots at Goldman Sachs and Solomon Brothers and, blah, blah, blah. So, and I had no job. I had no, my resume didn't look so good.
Right.
And I had never filed taxes to that point. So I filed all my back taxes. I used the references from my buddies, and then I got a friend of mine to say that I worked for him in this business for 12 years or whatever. So I had some sort of resume. And I bamboozled my way into the Smith Barney training program and became a stockbroker. And I'm a workaholic, and I worked really, really, really hard and got really, really, really lucky at the same time and did really well. But Smith Barney was corporate. It was 15,000 brokers, many, and it was just, I was never going to be, but so a friend of mine was running the DLJ office, Donaldson, Lumpkin, and Jenrette, small boutique, 300 brokers for rich people. And they were taking internet companies public at the beginning of that. And so because of my success, I got a job in Miami working for them. Then the internet bubble burst. We got taken over by Credit Suisse First Boston, now just Credit Suisse, biggest investment firm in the world at the time. And the problem was...
This is the firm in Miami?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're out of Switzerland. And then because the internet thing cratered, I only had 6 customers. They all were the same guy, essentially. Founder, CEO of a startup internet company.
So this is 2002, 2000?
This is 96, 97, 98.
Okay.
And so I'm going around making money hand over fist. I would find somebody that was either the founder or CEO, and they would get 6 million shares of that company. When you start a company and you go public and you're a control person, okay, you can't sell those shares. So the stock was given to them at no cost. It opens up at $15 out of the IPO. The next day it goes to 100.
Right.
So now they got $60 million.
Right.
More
Which
than
can't
that.
sell it.
600, but they can't. But DLJ had a special program. We're going to loan you up to 35%. With a unwritten quid pro quo, you can take that, we're going to give you, say, $50 million. You're going to take that money, do whatever the hell you want with it, but you're going to leave at least $10 million behind for Bob to spin around and make money on.
Okay.
And I had 6 guys like that. And in 1997, 98, 99, my best friend had a private jet. We're jetting all over the world. We're making money hand over fist. It was crazy. Living in Miami on the ocean. May 9th, 2000 is the peak of NASDAQ, 5,000. And from that day, for the next 4 years.
What, the bubble burst?
The bubble burst, and just slowly. So here's what happens. It's a $100 stock on May 9th. That summer, it's down to $50. Well, yeah, so it's cut in half, but hey, I still got, $300 million. I still have an outstanding balance. I can't sell the stock. I'm not worried. But then the stock starts going to 30, to 20, to 15. Now, all of a sudden, the loan value is equal to the stock value. Still can't sell it. Then the stock goes down. Now the stock's at $5. As soon as the stock hits $5, it's no longer a marginable security, New York Stock Exchange rules, and we sell them out into a market that's already declining. That $5 share gets sold for $2. So he owes us $50 million. We sell his 6 million shares for $2. He owes us $38 million. Call it in, pal.
Right.
Well, he's got a mansion he's building that he can't sell. He's got a plane. He's got a Ferrari, and he's got a stripper girlfriend with big tits. None of which he can monetize.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And so I had 6 guys like that. So and it's never their fault. When you lose $60 million, it's never your fault. And in the brokerage business, you sign saying that if there's a disagreement, we're going to go to arbitration, binding. And so all my customers basically went bankrupt. DLJ, well, at this point, Credit Suisse. Oh, and I also had taken these shares as payment and borrowed against them. So my commission, I got commissions where I'd get 50,000 shares. And I had $25 million worth of restricted stock, but I had an $8 million loan against them that I turned around and blew on internet stocks that crashed. So I was upside down about $12 million. Credit Suisse says, good news and bad news, Bob. You're fired. The $12 million, we're wiping it away. Oh, meet Mr. Kushner. He's your new lawyer. He's a $500 an hour. He's going to defend you and all, because of course everybody sued.
It's not their fault. It's your fault.
Yeah. So we're going to arbitration. It took 3.5 years for these 6 things to play out. We won them all because we didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
And they flew me around first class, put me up at the Mandarin or the Four Seasons, paid this $500 an hour lawyer, forgave my $12 million. But I went from the White House to the outhouse. I had no money. And I also had I'd been indulging in things I maybe shouldn't have. And so I'm a mess.
Right.
And if it hadn't been for my parents, I would have been homeless. That's when I moved.
That is all the way down, right?
Yeah. And so, I would have been on the streets. So my mom and dad were successful. And they, let me move into the family house. My other brothers and sisters are all very successful. And there's Bob. And it took a couple of years. And I got into one of my customers at Credit Suisse was the largest, worked for a company out of Amsterdam that was the Almsmeer auction house, where 70% of the world's cut flowers went through every day. And so I was going to Amsterdam for 2 weeks every 10 weeks. And I met these guys who started internet. And
did you see the movie Middleman?
No.
It's about the guys that started internet.
So these guys were Dutch.
These guys were not Dutch.
They owned the Casa Rosa, which is the oldest live sex show theater in the world. Been there for 100 years. They owned the Banana Bar in Amsterdam, another, you go in, people having sex. They owned Windows. They had all these actors and actresses that worked for them. And another friend of mine from Gainesville was a computer guy, and this is what I realized in the early 90s, said, you could set up a camera and you could start filming these. And they started with Python video. And back in those days, people paid for it. And they got out right before the bubble burst, before it became free. And then they bought a company called Party Poker, which was the largest online poker thing. So when everything cratered after a couple of years, I started a company doing credit card processing for gambling sites because it was really difficult.
So the guy in the movie Middleman, that's the premise of the movie. It's like the guys aren't making the money. It's the guy that's doing the credit card processing. He's the one. And then, of course, he also has the additive incentive of just saying, we're just processing. Like, I don't have nothing to do with it. We're just processing the payments.
And here's the scam.
You got to see that movie. I'm going to send you that movie.
Here's the scam.
It's a good movie.
When the internet started, okay, and the first commerce, how do you pay? Credit cards. It's all new. We've never done this before. MasterCard and Visa US came out and said, we're going to allow people to do online credit cards. But when you go to a restaurant or a store and you present what's called an in-person credit card transaction, the credit card company takes all the risk.
Okay.
So if I steal a credit card, I go somewhere and charge up a bunch of stuff. An in-person transaction, I signed, the MasterCard Visa takes care of the risk. They give you your money back.
Okay.
They said, but for online stuff, the merchant's taking all the risk. So you can't have more than 1 or 2% chargebacks.
Yeah.
Well, people knew that they could watch for 6 months, call up and say, I never did that.
And then they
charge back. Same thing with gambling. And so there was an arbitrage because you've got the U.S. MasterCard Visa saying no to gambling. Sorry. But MasterCard Visa International said yes. And so from my Credit Suisse days, I had connections with offshore banks. So I got a partner who knew credit cards, and we had a merchant account on offshore banks, and we were processing credit cards for mostly gambling sites because it was easier. And we had systems set up so when somebody charged back once, they were put into a not only would we no longer process their charges, but nothing from that house. Because a lot of times they would have roommates, and their roommate would use a card, blah, blah, blah. So any credit cards that went to that address or these cards, and we were fairly successful. And we were growing. We had an office in San Jose, Costa Rica. We were making money hand over fist. And then in 2006, December, an innocuous bill comes before Congress. The idiot from the junior senator from Arizona, Kyle, KYL, attaches to an innocuous spending bill, a rider that made what we were doing against federal law. And so I had just blown up a few years before, and I went from the, and now all of a sudden it blew up again, and I was left with nothing. And
so just like that, one day you had to just stop.
Yeah, or go to federal prison. Because what they did was, the feds are smart. There was a company called Bet on Sports that was on the London Stock Exchange. They were the biggest sports book in the world out of Costa Rica. Legal in London. Gambling's legal. When they passed that law, his name was David something. You can Google it. He was flying from London to Miami, Miami to San Jose. When he landed in Miami, they got on the plane, they took him off, and they threw him in a pit. Threw away the key. 20 years. Because he was the biggest. And when you do that to the biggest guy, what do the other guys do?
Yeah, they get scared.
They get scared and they run away.
They can do it to him. Then.
And so we're not, I'm not going to go to prison. So we shut it down.
Hey, real quick, just wanted to let you guys know that we're looking for guests for the podcast. If you think you'd be a good guest or you know somebody, do me a favor. You can fill out the form. The link is in our description box, or you can just email me directly. Email is in the description box. So back to the video.
So now it's, 2000, and I had made enough money to where I went a couple of years without working, and I was depressed.
Right.
And, it's like my whole life, everything I ever did blew up. That's what it seemed like anyway. And then the laws in California started to relax. They started to allow dispensaries. In 1996, they passed that law that basically said dispensaries were legal with a medical card.
Right.
And so basically the risk had gotten less. The prices were the same. And so I was down to my last $10,000.
And this is about what? This is 2009.
No, 2008, 2009. Yeah. I go out to California.
Is it still just medical?
It's still medical. I bought 3.5 pounds. That's all I could afford. They were between 3,000 and 3,500 a piece. I brought them back to Austin, Texas to see if I could sell them fast enough to where I could live off the profits and reinvest. And then, so I did it the first time I went back, and I got 6 the next time. And then I went back the next time, and I got 12. And I was going to the same 2 growers, and then I went back the 4th time, and I said, all right, I'm going to buy 20. You're going to front me 20. And I started leveraging that, and then I figured out ingenious ways to get it back. And then I met somebody who wanted to buy more than I could produce.
What's a way to get it back?
Well, there's a couple of them. I would buy 1970s and 80s Volvo station wagons. In the back seat, the station wagon popped up and faced backwards.
Right.
Underneath that seat was a spare tire. And you take out the spare tire and all the stuff around it, and it's a round circular storage area. I had a friend who would cut that out and put in a square storage facility, and I could put about 80 pounds of in it. And so I would drive them out to California, load them up, ship them back to a friend of mine at a hotel in San Antonio, big hotel, huge convention center. And people were shipping cars and stuff to them all the time.
Okay.
And so I paid him. And so, hey, if anything comes, anybody pays attention to this car, just call me. I won't come pick it up.
Right.
And so that's what we were getting. And then I met a guy who's, that I still know, that wanted more than I was bringing back. And so I said, I got to go get a house. So in 2010, I got an apartment in San Francisco on the ocean, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, its own garage. And then another buddy of mine, the 3 of us would go out once a month. They'd each buy 200 pounds. I'd buy 100. And we used this apartment. My wife used to call it the hideout because it was 3 beds and a bunch of tables and sealers. And we'd bring back the 500 pounds and seal it, triple seal it. And then we had I don't really want to go into how we mailed them back, but we had a really ingenious way because the guy's still in,
Right.
But we had a foolproof way to get it back. In fact, one time we shipped 20 boxes that had about 15 pounds each. So it's a lot of.
Right.
And it was over Christmas. And the way it worked is, even though you were sending it UPS, it was actually going by rail. They would load, because they were going ground, so they'd load these things on a train, and it would go from San Francisco to LA to Texas. Well, somewhere in Arizona, the train derailed. And so when you go check the tracking, oh, the train derailed. Yeah, so whatever. So we wrote it off. Well, 6 weeks later, they show up, banged up, holes in the side, showed up, nothing was missing. I mean, this is...
I'd have been terrified to even go near them. Afraid to start opening them up and there'd be a tracking device or something.
Yeah, it was, but, you know, so it was just and then the laws kept changing, and then, you know, they got looser and looser and looser, and then recreational came to Oregon, to Colorado, to Washington State, to California, and the danger kept getting less and less, and the prices didn't fall as much. So there was still a real premium in the product. Well, eventually, because there was no more risk premium, that it just became a regular product. So if it costs you $200 to grow, you've got to sell it for $400.
Right.
And that's where the prices went to. And people went out of business, went bankrupt. You know, it was a boom bust cycle. And I was lucky enough to be smart enough to, you know, hold on and during the bad times and participated when the boom happened. And so I've been, you know, I had the largest the first multi-acre permitted farm in California.
So, I mean, at what point did you decide that you were going to get it permitted? I mean, you just saw it coming?
Yeah, we saw it coming. And
you go out and get a lawyer? I mean, how did that?
Oh, yeah. And I had a billionaire partner from my Credit Suisse days.
Right.
I had another guy worth $400 million who was a bipolar lunatic. And then I had a buddy of mine that I knew who went to college with my sister who was worth $40 million. And then I was the little peon. But the farm was one of my farms that I was supporting through the whole time, growing 99 plants legally.
Right.
But it was the most incredible farm you've ever seen. I mean, the product was amazing. And the opportunity to buy the land around this farm just happened to pop up because it was all owned by the same family for 150 years. And then the head guy died, and the kids just wanted the money. And so we bought $3.5 million worth of farm property. And just by the way Humboldt County wrote the law, we had many parcels, 5-acre parcels. And so we just somehow qualified for 8 acres instead of 1. And so we were the only one that got multiple acres that year. And so we grew 20,000 pounds. We threw half of it away because we couldn't trim it. We couldn't store it. We didn't realize how much, you know. Right. And again, first couple of years, money hand over fist. And then the guys running it, we clashed. And the guy that ran it used his brother, the lawyer, idiot lawyer, to draw up the operating agreement, and he fucked it up. He gave me all the power because the 4 of us, the billionaire, 400 million, 40 million, Bob with 30 cents. No decisions could be made without unanimous consent. We couldn't bring another person in to invest. We couldn't spend more than $10,000. And so we needed unanimous for all 4 of us. And we didn't like each other, and they wanted me out. And so they wanted to give me $1 million. And I said, no, I want $2 million. And they said, go fuck yourself. I said, fine. I was allowed to put whoever I wanted on the board to replace me. So I put a bulldog lawyer I knew from college, and he started making their life a hell. So 2 months later, $2 million check in the mail. And then I used that to go to Oregon and start CBD. I got into CBD when it was, you know, just starting. And that went boom and bust.
I had a friend who went to, Colorado and bought a huge warehouse and started growing, and he couldn't make it work. And I mean, they tried for like 2 years.
It's hard.
He was like, it's just too difficult, you know? And of course, he hired a guy that knew how to grow, and he was going to do it all. Dude didn't want to use any pesticides or use any, all had to be organic. He's like, but he didn't really know what he was doing. Which is great, but he didn't know what he was doing. He's like, we had like multiple failed crops
That's the most common failure, is that these guys have the money, they buy the infrastructure, but no one's ever grown in that scale before. So they get some guy that had 4 lights in his garage to think that he could go have a 500 light facility and manage people in the process.
My buddy too, the problem with him is he's one of those guys who wants to go build a website. And I mean, this happened when I was, you know, a few years ago, you know, wanted to build a website. He's like, yeah, I got a quote for like $3,500. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I mean, that's the website. Like what you want to be able to take, you want to be able to take credit cards. You want to be able to do, there's all this interactive. You want everything. Good. That's probably what it's going to cost. And he's like, oh, people do websites for $200-300. I'm like, yeah, but those are like cookie cutter websites. You have a specific thing you wanted to do. You wanted to work also with the software at your, it was actually at a gym. And he's like, you don't know anybody? I'm like, I just got out of prison. I don't know anybody. But I'm like, that sounds about right. Like, and so called around, got a couple of quotes. They're all like $3,500, $4,000, whatever. So find somebody who says they can do it for $500. Pays the $500. Never even gets close to being done. Then somebody else who does websites goes to the gym. Then, and keep in mind, drags them for 3 or 4 months till they realize. So now he goes to the guy that said he can do it. He wants $1,500. He's like, what, 5? Oh, no, it's going to be at least this much. Oh, what? Oh, yeah, I can do it. Pays him $1,500. That guy actually just disappears. Stops going to the gym. He's like, I know he's good because he comes in here every other day. Like for $1,500, you think he's, you don't think he'll switch gyms? LA Fitness is only 2 blocks away. So he drags him for about 2 months. I got another project. I'm almost there. I'm going to do it. I'm going to start. Give me this, give me that. And then so 2 months later, boom, the guy just stops coming in. Stops returning his calls. Oh my God. Then he paid someone. No, wait. I think he paid someone else, gave him like so much up front. So now he's into this for, by the way, he ends up being about $2,500 in before this guy realizes this guy's not going to be able to do it either. And then he ends up going back to the other people and pays
$3,500 like he should have.
Plus the $3,000 that he pays. Plus by this point, it's been over a year. So you spent over a year, still spent $35 plus the $3,000, and yeah, and all I could think of was that was the same thing that happened in when he had gone to Colorado. I was like, you got a guy who was cheap, who full of confidence but had no real experience, and this one guy devastated your entire thing. Yeah, but it's because you were just trying to save a little bit of money. I get it, but And I do that all the time. Every time I try and save a little bit of money doing something, I always regret it.
It's the biggest mistake. An e-commerce site is not easy.
Right.
The credit card processing, how do you handle returns? How do you keep inventory? How do you do the accounting? It's complicated. I mean, $3,500 is cheap. I mean, we've spent a lot. We've spent $25,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. And you got to hire professionals.
Yeah. That sucks. Because I built a bunch of websites, like all the little websites I have right now. I built with somebody, but they're all like GoDaddy, and they're all like Wix way, like you build them and then you go to GoDaddy and buy the things. Like they're cookie cutter.
Yeah, if you're not doing heavy transactions, it's fine.
You can do that, but
not to sell stuff.
Now suddenly you want, we need to take credit cards. We need to do that. Okay, now you stop. We can't do all that. That's
and
too
the
much.
Other thing is, if you're going to have an e-commerce site, God forbid, you start getting real traffic, you have to be set up for real. The GoDaddy things, if you got 1,000 people came at once, it'd blow up.
Yeah, it crashed.
You've got to have, that's got to be built into it.
So that's what you're doing now?
So I got Trap House, which is a brand of super high-end indoor, what they call THCA hemp. We've got a couple other brands called Red Dragon and Minotaur, which are a little bit less quality, outdoor, light depth stuff. So everything from $20 an eighth to $60 an eighth. And we're going to sell pre-rolls and blunts, but just flour.
Who's coming up with these names?
Trap House we kind of stole. It's urban word.
Yeah,
for
I know what a trap house is. Yeah. I was thinking Minotaur, Dragon.
Yeah.
Is this something that you guys like sit around and things like, I'm going, what do you think? Dragon? No, definitely Dragon. Yeah, that's the way to go.
Well, we were talking to a friend of ours who was in this business, and he said, I've got this brand called Red Dragon I'm not using. You want it? I'm like, yeah. Because he had the logos. It was kind of ready to rock and roll. And then we needed another one, and we're sitting around, the three of us, and we're kicking around names, and, what's something, because the Minotaur from the mythology is a bull's head on a man's body.
Yeah.
And, of course, a muscle-bound man.
Yeah.
And so that's what the logo is, this, I mean, most of the customers are going to be men. So,
what is flower? Like if I ask these questions,
Yeah,
like
no.
people I'm thinking people in the comments will be like, Cox is so square. Like, like I've never smoked pot. So what is powder?
So flower. This is kind of interesting, I think. So in 2018, the only positive thing I can think of for the last president, whose name I'm not going to mention, signed the 2018 Farm Bill.
Okay.
And in that, because the Farm Bill was written to help out the CBD industry. Because up until then, CBD was legal, but it wasn't legal. And you couldn't the banks were afraid that if they took CBD accounts that they get shut down, even though the Fed said we weren't. Remember, Obama's Holder was his name, the AG under Obama, said we're not going to go after, but he just said it.
Yeah.
Okay, but it was still a Schedule I narcotic.
Yeah.
So there was no banking, and so this bill was supposed to memorialize in writing at the federal level in a law, so the banks could feel comfortable doing CBD business. There's only one genus and species of cannabis. People say cannabis indica or cannabis sativa or indica, but it's just cannabis sativa. It's one kind. Some have high THCA, some have high CBDA, but the one thing none of them have is THC or CBD. Those don't exist in the plant.
Okay.
They exist in acid form. And so they said any cannabis sativa plant that tests under 0.3 THC is hemp. Period. End of story. Well, it turns out that there is no THC in the plants. The problem is the way cannabis is tested. It's tested by a machine called an HPLC, high pressure liquid chromatography machine. And you grind up a gram of flour, you mix it with a solvent, and the solvent depends on the machine you're using, and then you heat it to 50 or 60 C for 10 minutes. And the general thought was, well, we're not heating it long enough or hot enough to convert the THCA to THC, but they were. So a smarty pants in California came up with a room temperature test that all of a sudden everything that he tested passed. So this exotic indoor, outdoor, light depth, everything that he tested passed. So it basically and then so most people, when they hear, oh, I'm not smoking any of that THCA bud, it's thinking that it's different. It's not. It's the same stuff. And so it's this loophole that we can now ship to 24 states, Florida being one of them. In fact, it's kind of interesting. The Senate and the House passed the bill in the state of Florida, outlawing THCA. And somehow DeSantis vetoed it. I'm sure somebody paid him off. I'm sure. So Texas, Florida, I mean.
No bias there.
Yeah, no. But so basically there's 22 states that I can ship to. No problem. And we test everything. I mean, everything has a test. And because of there really is no THC in these plants, and people always thought that there was, but everything exists in the plant in acid form. CBDA, THCA, CBGA. It's all in acid form and doesn't convert to what's called the neutral form, THC, heat. Decarboxylation is a fancy term for heat, essentially. So when that's why you can take a joint and you can eat 10 joints. You don't get high. You take those 10 joints and put them in the oven for an hour and heat them up. Then you put those in brownies and eat them. You're fucked up for a month.
Okay.
Because you've converted the THCA to THC.
So I still don't understand what flour is.
Okay, so the flour is in this acid form and passes the tests. Vape pens, dabs, the stuff that I don't know if you know what dabs are, the concentrates.
Okay.
So concentrates, vape pens, most edibles have already been converted. So when they get tested, they're way over 0.3 THC. But the flower doesn't convert until you smoke it.
Okay, so you send the flower, then they can make brownies with it and
They
eat
can do
it?
whatever they want with it.
Okay.
But it's, it doesn't convert until they heat it up, so we're only selling flower.
Okay.
There are other, you go on Facebook and my feed is filled with people shipping to all 50 states, which is a no-no.
Right.
Selling every product there is, which is a no-no. They just don't care.
Right.
Because they're probably switching up to sites and they're probably all in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
And, but we're going to do it the right way. We're only going to ship to the states that want it. We're not going to sell any of the products that are, anywhere near close to not passing. And we're going to follow the rules. And we're going to, pay our taxes. And, it's kind of it really is interesting because even people that think they're into business have this perception that THCA is some special genetics, some special thing that somebody found that they grow, and there's no THC. No, it's all the same. It's just the way the testing method has changed for the better. So they don't heat up the solvent, and they keep it at room temperature so it doesn't convert. And so everything, my friend has tested tens of thousands of plants.
All right.
All of them pass legitimately.
I get it. So it's like precursor materials is what I'm considering it to. Like, it's not meth, it's, Sudafed. So I'm just giving you Sudafed. Now, if you cook it up, that's on you, but I can sell you the Sudafed.
Right, yeah. Right. So, and we're selling to, flower smokers, people that want to smoke joints.
Right.
And, and there's enough,
And what's illegal? The THC part of it? Like if it was heated up?
Anything that's got more than 0.3 THC by weight is illegal.
He's saying like if they took the same product he's sending you in powder form and turned it into brownies and then tried and
then it would be illegal.
Then tried to send it to you, now it's got THC and now it's illegal for him to sell it to you in Florida.
But with your marketing, is there any like gray areas or like
sounds pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, are you still able to market it as like, hey, like this is what it's going to be used for?
Yeah, we want people to smoke it. We have pictures of it. We call it THCA hemp. This is, technically, what it is. But it's the same flower that we made 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 3 years ago. Nothing changed. The testing changed.
Yeah.
And the law changed.
Did you ever see the movie, oh gosh, Lord of War?
No. I almost said no before you asked, but no.
He's never seen. No. Dude, this is a good movie. It's got Nicolas Cage, but basically it's like they're shipping a helicopter to one place, and then they're shipping these missiles to it. Now the missiles are on the helicopter, but you're shipping them separately. They're going to the same place. As soon as they get there, we'll just take the missiles and stick them on the helicopters. You're not allowed to ship a armed helicopter, but if you ship them separately, even though they're going to the same place, and it's perfectly legal. But if they put them on the helicopter and shipped them, now it's illegal. So it's the same thing. It's like saying, hey, I can't mail you. I can mail you the flower. And when you get it into Florida, now you can make it into brownies and eat it. But if I had made it into brownies and shipped it then, now it's illegal. It's just, there's lots of little tiny, silly. Same thing with like if you go to the supermarket. If you were to go to the supermarket and buy, I'm going to make up something, buy ammonia and then go, buy ammonia and whatever, some other cleaning product, and then go buy gasoline and mix them together and create a bomb. Well, you're allowed to buy ammonia. You're allowed to buy this other cleaning product. You're allowed to buy gasoline. You're allowed to ship all of that stuff to Florida. And then so that's perfectly legal. But if in another state I were to buy those products, mix them up into the bomb and mail the bomb, now that's illegal. Mm-hmm. But if you could mail all the other stuff to you, mix it up,
And it's perfect. It's perfectly fine to ship those they're precursor kind of materials.
Now, is it illegal for these people to consume, or is it just illegal to sell?
No, they're allowed to. It's because they're smoking THCA hemp that passed, and it was at the time that it was tested, it was under 0.3 THC.
Yeah. Now, they're not allowed to make it and sell it. Like, if they got it here and they made brownies, they went and sold brownies, well, then they need to be licensed. They need to be licensed. They have to go through all these too. But they're allowed to make it in their own home.
But they're allowed to make it and say, like, they're not getting in trouble for using it.
Yeah, if they're going to do it in their own house, I'm sure it's fine. Yeah. I mean, but in Florida's got medical. You can go to a dispensary in Florida and buy edibles.
Yeah.
You can buy vape pens. And the flower that we're selling is from small boutique farmers. So I've spent my life doing this. So my website is cannacurator.com. And I've got 3 brands on there, one of which I'm part of, this Trap House. And so I've identified 6 or 7 or 8 farms that we'll put under 3 brands. And it's by far a higher quality and fresh than the stuff that you buy in dispensaries.
Right.
And that's why the dispensary guys in Florida are so mad, because they don't want the competition. And a CBD store doesn't have any onus taxes. They don't have the regulations. They don't have the licenses. They don't have all the overhead, all the problems. And so right next door to the dispensary is a CBD store that's selling better product, cheaper, with none of the overhead. And there's another problem with dispensaries is 280E. 280E is the IRS tax code. So believe it or not, a dispensary can't write off the employees. They can't write off their expenses because they're drug dealers. The IRS has said, no, you're a drug dealer. You cannot write off anything. So there's no way to make money, which is why all of the dispensaries that you see are owned by billionaires, because they know they're going to lose money until that law passes, until they change the law, I mean.
All right.
And so they're trying to get it changed right now. So they said they're going to lower from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. The whole reason for that is so they can get rid of 280E.
And so they can tax them.
So the IRS, because if you make $1 million in a business, okay, and if you have to pay taxes on $1 million, you're going to go out of business, because 500 of that was employees.
Right.
I mean, there's no way to be profitable.
Right.
And so it's just such a joke. I mean, the laws are screwed up. The scheduling screwed up. Now we've got this THCA thing. I'm just basically following the letter of the law. And
it makes so much sense. You'd think Biden would have fixed it in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
How long ago was this law changed?
2018.
Yeah.
2018 Farm Bill.
I mean, I just got random questions because I don't know anything about this. So
I don't either.
What exactly is CBD?
So CBD, the acid form, exists in abundance in a hemp plant. So a hemp plant has very little CBD and a lot of THCA.
Okay.
Okay. So hemp has more it's been bred to have more CBD and less THCA.
What is hemp for?
Well,
like plants you smoke them, right?
There's 2 kinds of hemp plants. You can grow hemp for fiber and oil in a huge field with males and females together and acres and acres and acres. And it's great in a place like Kansas, because Kansas doesn't have outdoor grows. The problem in Oregon and California has always been the mindset, hemp, males and females together, seeds. I got this huge outdoor grow that legal. And if my next door neighbor is growing hemp and it's seeds, he's going to seed my whole crop and it's worth nothing. So there's the oil fiber type where there's seeds, there's males and females that produce pollen and will seed a crop. The stuff in Oregon is females only.
What do you mean by males and females on the plants?
Well, the female plant has males and females, so you only smoke the female. The males are killed.
No idea.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Why I
so-
asked.
Never took a horticulture class. Never. I don't know anything about.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So in today's world, grows don't buy seeds. They buy clones. So somebody has a big plant of something that everyone likes. They take cuttings from it, and then they root those, and those go in the ground, and they're all identical to the mom.
Okay.
Seeds have way too much variability. You could take the seeds from one type of plant, say Blue Dream. You've got a Blue Dream, you've got 100 seeds. You grow those 100 seeds, you kill all the males. You can identify them when they're about 6 weeks old. And now you've got an acre of just female Blue Dream plants. But there's going to be a variety. The phenotypes, there's going to be some shorter ones, some purple ones, some, it's hard to grow a consistent crop. So people find clones, they go into the business of producing identical plants.
What exactly is the difference between CBD and THC?
Well, THC has a psychoactive property. CBD and CBDA and all of the other regular cannabinoids do not have the psychoactive properties, and they do other things, but they don't get you high.
Okay.
CBD is great topically. You can put it on a cream, and if you got a sore shoulder or elbow, it'll relieve that.
Oh yeah. Okay. My mom had that. For stuff like for your back, or she had achy her hands. They put it on your hands.
The real medicine is in the acid form, CBDA. And I have a lab that in 2018 and 19, we produced high CBDA oil that we removed the THC from, and it works incredibly well. And there are actually tests done by the British Journal of Pharmacology and real testing facilities that tested CBDA from 2010 on, and it relieves internal inflammation. So not a broken wrist, but your organs, an inflamed prostate, an inflamed intestines, Crohn's disease, enlarged prostate.
Listen, my roommate has Crohn's disease. He needs something.
All right, so here's the thing.
As a matter of fact, his stomach's always. I always joke he's got a pot belly, but he doesn't have. He does have a pot belly, but it's because of the Crohn's.
From the Crohn's. It also is an immune boost. Now, there's kind of a problem, and God sometimes is the biggest joker in the world. When you take there's 150 cannabinoids. THCA, THC, CBDA, CBD, CBGA. I mean, there's 100 of them. If you eat them, it goes through your stomach and into your liver. Mouth, stomach, liver is called first pass digestion. God, as a joke to all humans, has the liver, takes every single cannabinoid and converts it to an innocuous metabolite that has no effect on the body except for one, THC. It takes THC, so when you cook brownies and you eat the THC that's been decarboxylated, your liver takes that THC molecule, converts it to 11-hydroxy metabolite that's 50 times more potent, which is why when people eat cannabis, they're 12 hours, or they're in the emergency room, or they freak out, and they have problems. All the other CBDA, all of them, it converts to useless metabolites. So we've got this oil that we know works internally. How do we get it in the body?
Right.
Well, unfortunately, in the poop chute. So we made suppositories.
Well, now, like he can take care of that himself.
You can do it. It's a one-man operation, or girl. But here's the problem, is that, and we're the first people to do this, there's a TRPV1 response A TRPV1 receptor is sometimes called the capsaicin receptor. Capsaicin is the active ingredient in hot peppers. So when you eat a hot pepper, chew, 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 the receptors are in your mouth, it fires off, it's spicy. The next day when you poop it out, those same receptors are in your butt, and you can feel the hot stuff going out your butt, right? When you eat hot spicy food? You've had that happen? Yes?
I don't eat hot spicy.
Well,
I believe you though. I've heard
so
all the jokes and the.
So it burns going. So CBDA is the only cannabinoid that we found that has an incredible affinity for this TRPV1 receptor. So first of all, getting somebody to put something in their ass is hard. Okay.
This is true.
It's a barrier.
I've had,
pardon the pun.
Had a few.
So now you've got
girlfriends have that talk with me. It's not
happening. No. So now you've convinced somebody because they're hurting. They've got Crohn's. They've got a large prostate. They've got problems. All right, I'll give it a whirl. And then as soon as you put it in, it burns. Not like, oh my God, I'm going to die, but I'm not ready for that.
Right.
Okay. And so if that was the only problem, we would have probably been successful. But then there's a 5-HT1A response. 5-HT1A receptors are in your brain and also in your butt. They do a lot of things. One of the things, it's a muscle relaxer. So when you put it up your butt, not only do you get a woo, but you poop immediately. Most people don't realize that, oh, I don't have to poop now. Well, most people realize the poop is sitting there for hours.
Yeah.
You don't know it. You don't feel it. You don't know it's there, but it's there. So when you put this up your butt, you poop. So now you pooped out the suppository that we tried to get you to do. And then the second thing, so the next overcoming that objection was, okay, now you've cleared your colon. Now you do another one. And it just got to be too much. People, we were in 7 doctor offices in Oregon, and we had great results, but it was just too much.
Yeah.
So then and of course I got enough oil to make 3 million suppositories. We started making enteric capsules. An enteric coating around the oil will not dissolve in the stomach. It's pH based. So your stomach is a 1 to 1.5 pH, very acidic. This capsule will only dissolve at 5 pH. So it goes through your stomach, it gets into your small intestine where it's at 3, won't dissolve there. It works its way down to the large intestine, into your colon, and dissolves. And we've only made these, which are called 2-piece enteric capsules we make by hand, but to do it, to go to market, we'd have to get a 1-piece made by a nutraceutical or pharmaceutical company. And we're not quite there yet. So when we go live with Trap House and Canna Curator, we're going to put on the suppositories strictly for constipation because they work every single time. And it's 100% organic. It's 100% cannabinoid oil without THC in it. And man, I mean, so we're going to take what it's good for and sell it for that. And so when you can't poop, trust me, instant relief is worth it. And we're putting 100 milligrams of high CBDA oil in a suppository. Our competitors are using CBD, which doesn't have this effect. And they're only putting 10 milligrams in, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't. Ours are going to work. So I think we'll find a market for people that, and a lot of people have medicines or diseases or just that's the way their intestines are built, where they have a hard time pooping.
Well, I mean, if you get the other thing, the Crohn's thing to work, I'm willing to volunteer my.
Well, he has to realize he's going to poop out the first one, and then he's going to have to immediately put another one in that'll stay, and then for 3 days he's going to do 3 a day.
All right,
and I'll give it to him for free.
All right, we got it. I got you. I got you a guinea pig.
Yeah. And then when we get eventually down the road, we'll be able to do the enteric capsules, but it's just another, $100,000 we don't have right now to, because we got to find a nutraceutical company. And the one that we like has a minimum order of 200,000.
Why does it have to be one capsule? Why can't, why does it have to be one coating? Why can't you just make them in capsules?
Well, because the 2-piece is sometimes they come apart.
Right.
And if it comes apart in the stomach, you have a psychotropic effect. Now, there's psychoactive, which is you're, whoa, wow, colors, I'm stoned. And psychotropic effect is coffee. 1 cup of coffee and you're good. But let's just say you drank 10 of those, and I'm exaggerating for effect.
Yeah.
You get all jittery. That's a psychotropic effect. So if one of these 100 milligram capsules, the 2-piece, are not really, you don't put things in there that could cause problems in the stomach. Because if they come apart, you're going to get a jittery psychotropic effect that's not pleasant. So we really have to go with the pharmaceutical or the nutraceutical one.
I'm more of a risk taker. I mean, what are we going to get, a phone call?
Yeah, I mean, I've got...
Maybe a lawsuit?
Yeah,
if we're making enough money, we can handle the lawsuits.
Well, exactly. Lawsuits are good. That's great publicity. I mean, people don't sue people who don't have money. Okay, being sued is a sign you made it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's like you listen to guys who complain about having to pay taxes and having to tax shelters. And like, if your problem is hiding your money from the IRS, like that's a problem I want to have.
Me too.
That's how much money you have. You're looking for tax shelters. You don't have problems.
No, you need a good accountant, a good CPA, a good lawyer, and you're done. But so I've got some of these capsules that we made, and we haven't had a lot of people have this happen, but it has happened. But it's just not something we're going to go to market with a 2-piece. We're going to go to market with a 1-piece, and we'll do that next year. But I really think that the suppositories are, I mean, because they work. I mean, that's the one thing you can count on where if you're constipated, or even if you're not, if you got poop, what they call poop on deck, and it's, you don't know that it's there, you put this baby in, you better be close to the bathroom. It's coming, baby.
I mean, if you need somebody to check this out, I'm willing to volunteer Colby.
Hey, sorry to interrupt the video. Just want to let you guys know that we're going to have an extra 15 or 20 minutes of content on my Patreon. It's $10 a month for about an hour's worth of extra content every single week. Back to the podcast.
What is the life cycle of a plant, and like how much product can one plant produce?
Oh, God, that's a great question. All right, so here's the cool thing is it's a business decision to the power of X. Every strain is different. So there are early blooming strains and long blooming strains. Our sweet spot is 60 days. When we put a plant into a flower room, in 60 days, it's got to get harvested. But that's our optimal. But there are some strains that are really popular, that are really amazing, that take 70.
Right.
And it's just, and some take 55. And you've got to figure out time is money. And so how many times can I turn this room a year? Bottom line.
Right.
And so we've got to, juggle, so we've got 7 flower rooms, and we've got 2 smaller ones that are 12 lighters that we put the plants that are 70 days or 68 days or 72 days, the longer ones. But the big rooms, we got to get in and out every 60 days. And we've, over the 4.5 years we've been in this spot working together, we've identified, 6 or 7 strains that are amazing to look at, amazing to smell, amazing taste, and work amazing. And, we know that we can, get 4 or 5 or 6 turns a year. And then we've got the 2 smaller rooms that are growing incredibly exotic. And we deal with the extra days because we sell those for more.
What is the difference between synthetic and natural?
There's no such thing as synthetic.
Yeah.
So organic sun-grown is outside. God provides the light, the CO2, the soil nutrients. I mean, you add some to that, but those plants don't look, smell, or taste like the stuff that's exotic. And so those are $20 eighths. The indoor plants, we use the same chemicals that the manure has in it. But we use calcium and nitrogen and phosphorus that we just buy that are made for hydroponic growing. So it's not synthetic. It's the same exact, chemical makeup. It's just that we're buying them in chemical form and putting them in water and then putting them to the plants. You asked another question about, we have a metric, 2.5 pounds per light. So that's another thing. When we grow something, let's just say it's, hits the 60 days, it looks amazing, but it only yielded 1.5 pounds of light. We got to throw that one away.
Okay.
We have to have at least 2.5 pounds per light to make it profitable.
Okay.
Because we have only so many turns, so many days, and so we've got to get 2.5 pounds of light.
What does exotic mean? Like, what are you doing to are you treating the plant differently, or
yes.
what makes a plant exotic? I guess
the exotic indoor is grown in an environment that doesn't exist in nature. You can't control the weather. You can't control really the soil. The soil is the soil. Mm-hmm. Even if you truck in soil, I mean, you hope that you've done a good job, but we feed. Some plants get fed 20 times a day, but just for a minute, because we grow hydroponic, which means it's in a cube that's basically has no nutrients in it, and so we just send nutrients into these cubes, and it runs off, and we measure the runoff. We measure what's coming out of them, so we know that to adjust the pH, or we adjust the recipe. But we're creating an environment that doesn't exist in nature, because we're raising the CO2, or we have the temperature and the humidity at levels that you just can't find.
So basically, it has each strain has a different type of an effect on you. Mm-hmm. Some might make you feel woozy, some might a little bit, what I'm saying? Like, you have certain types of coffee that you like, you know what I mean? Or a certain type of I don't like that one, I like this. Or some people like spicy food, some people don't,
Yeah, you can't get the exotic look, smell, and taste that we get outdoors, or even in a greenhouse. It really has to be, you have to control every aspect. And there's a blessing and a curse to that, because if you screw it up, or God forbid the power goes off, or somebody makes a mistake, or a humidifier goes out, or one of the employees does something stupid, you lose 10 weeks into a room and you lose it. I mean, that's painful. So it's hard.
Right.
And it keeps the riffraff out. I mean, it's there. And the other thing is, you've got big competitors. Jungle Boys is a big competitor. Backpack Boys, they're growing, 3,000 light facilities. Well, when you grow that big, it's like anything. Ford makes more cars in one day than Ferrari makes in 2 years.
Right.
Right? So we have a 300 light facility, boutique, exotic, hands-on. I mean, we're looking at, it's, when you grow, it's just, you can't be all things to all people. You can't have 3,000 lights and think that you're going to have the same type of quality that we do, but you can have a lot more of it. Right. And these brands are big, and they're selling to hundreds of stores, and so we're not going to do that.
What are some common misconceptions about those products that maybe aren't true?
All right, so this is one that I'm kind of passionate about. People will have a strain. It doesn't matter what it's called. And, that's an uppy. I want an uppy high. Or I want couch lock. Or I want trippy. I want, But here's the thing. It's just like, I had a girlfriend in college that was the nicest girl. One drink, maniac.
Right.
Well, that doesn't mean all humans do one drink. I'm Irish. I can drink 10 drinks. You don't know I've had one.
Right.
So the effect, I brought a joint. I don't know if you guys smoked or not, but I could smoke it, and I could get real trippy dippy and see colors and lines going, and start, really thinking about really cool Grateful Dead shows I went to as a kid. You could smoke it and you could be knocked out. So every individual is different. You've got to figure that out for yourself. So you've got to buy a couple of different strains.
You have a variety pack?
Buy a variety pack, yes.
Do you really?
Oh, no, we're going to have a thing. If you spend more than $100, you get a discount. So buy an eighth of this, an eighth of that, an eighth of this.
Okay.
And once you find a strain that has the effect that you're looking for, whether it be couch lock or whether it be an up high, a mellow high, oh my God, I'm going to die, whatever it is, that's individual. It's not written across the board. So there's no such thing as, oh, this is a couch lock strain. Well, for some people it might be, but for some people it might give them energy.
Right.
So it's just like everything else in life. Everybody's got a different metabolism.
Going back to your crime days, I guess, or smuggling days earlier, did you ever get caught, busted?
I never got busted, but I had some pretty close calls. I mean, I got pulled over a number of times with a trunk full of weed. So this is in the 80s. We bought the first diesel Jettas that came out, 1983. And the diesel Jetta had a small car, big trunk, and the diesel got 50 miles to the gallon. And we were driving these things all over the country. I drove from Gainesville, Florida to Jacksonville. I picked up 200 pounds, put it in the trunk. I'm coming back to Gainesville. I'm on 26 between Melrose and Gainesville, and the thing dies. It was like a 3-week-old car. And obviously, before cell phones, it was hot. It was the summertime. I get out of the car. I see a gas station. I walk to the gas station. I call my friend. Hey, man, I'm broken down. You got to come get me. So I go back to the car, put the hood up, and I'm sitting in the car. I got the windows down. It's hot as shit. State trooper pulls up behind me, comes up to the window, wants to chat. And then he said, what's wrong with the car? I said, it's a diesel, man. And so we both go around and we're looking at this diesel. And he goes, I don't know what any of this stuff does. And then he just wants to talk. And so I'm chatting with him. I'm trying to get him to go. And so I just walk back into the car. I'm sitting in the car, literally with my leg out the window, and he's standing above me talking to me. And I'm looking this way as cars are coming from Gainesville. And all of a sudden, I see my friend.
He just keeps on going?
Keeps on going. 2 seconds later, the guy leaves. I have no way of calling him.
Right.
I got this 83. And I sat there for 2 more hours. And my friend, waited 2 hours. And now it's still the middle of the day. He backs up his car to my car. We open the trunks. And we transfer into daylight 200 pounds into his car, and we take off and go back to Gainesville.
Jeez.
Hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of videos just like this. Also, we're going to leave all of the links to the websites in the description box. So you can go there, click on it, go straight to the website. They should be open for business by the time this video is released. Do me a favor, please consider joining our Patreon. We're putting Patreon exclusive content on Patreon. It's $10 a month. It really does help us. So thank you very much. I appreciate you guys watching. See ya.